All right, hello everyone. Happy Thursday and happy St. Patrick's Day, and welcome to Streaming Advertising 201, How to Succeed Across a Fragmented Landscape. We are really excited to be partnering with OpenAP for this webinar today. But before we dive into content, I want to first hop into some logistics. The first is that the recording and slides for the session will be in your inbox shortly after our webinar today. Always the top question on everyone's mind, so no worries, it'll be in your inbox shortly. Also, you can log back in with that same link anytime during the hour today. If you do have to hop, you can join via that same link that's been in your inbox and calendar invite. Also, we have lots of handouts in our handout section of the dashboard. So if you look over to the right after chat, there's polls and handouts. We have lots of great resources in there from both Nudie and OpenAP, so make sure to download those. Also, I know many of you all have already introducing yourselves in the chat and saying you're tuning in from. Seen a lot of the Midwest, someone from Allentown, PA. I went to college in the Lehigh Valley. You can also use our chat during the session to submit questions for our speakers at the end of the session as well during our live Q&A. Also, make sure to join our poll questions. We'll also have one in there that if you're interested in talking with our teams after, you can indicate there. I'll also introduce myself. My name is Carrie Mala. I'm a senior content specialist for webinars here at Tenuity, and I'll be hosting our webinar today. So a little bit about Tenuity. Here at Tenuity, we've mastered the media that matters most. We're the largest independent performance marketing firm across streaming TV and the trioply of Google, Facebook, and Amazon. At Tenuity, we understand that success requires both strategy and channel specialization. That approach wins us awards and recognition across the industry, such as the American Business TV Awards and the Shorty Awards, and allows us to grow some amazing clients like those that you see here. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Jesse and Abby to introduce themselves.
What's up, everyone? Thanks for joining today. Really glad to be with you. I'm Jesse Math. I am VP of Advanced TV and Video Solutions here at Tenuity. I get to work with our clients and develop our products around the convergent video space. So thanks again for joining.
Hey everybody, and happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm Abby Thomas, located in sunny Venice Beach, California, and I've been with OpenAP for over 2 years. I lead adoption and all revenue for OpenAP.
Awesome. We are so excited to have you both here with us today, and I know Abby too, you're going to introduce a little bit about OpenAP.
Absolutely. So OpenAP is the collective television industry's effort to enable simplicity and scale in audience-based buying across both linear and OTT viewership and streaming environments and digital FEP, video everywhere across all screens and all devices. With funding from NBC Universal, Fox, Paramount, and Discovery, again, a collective ambition across all different television endpoints to be able to resolve cross-platform insights and duplicated reach and frequency in a very easy and simple way.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you joining us and be working with OpenAP for this webinar. So I'm going to walk through our agenda. So we're going to talk about what does this current streaming landscape look like? What is a five-step process for success in the current fragmented landscape? How you can buy in Streaming Plus, how to activate audiences across all the different screens that we're all on, how to measure impact across platforms, and then finally our Q&A at the end of the session today. But before we dive into all that, I want to hear from you all. I have launched a poll in the polls dashboard. So if you click over from chat to polls, I want to hear what is your biggest challenge to scaling right now? Do you say the overwhelmingly fragmented nature, finding the right audience, the barriers to entry are high, or perhaps if it's not reflected in the responses and it's something else, you can let us know in the chat. So we've got responses coming in now. Looks like pretty 50-50 split between the first two answers. And yeah, the good news is that we are going to continue to be so. All right. Looks like, and we're going to dive into all of this. So I'm going to go off camera and hand it over to Jessica.
All right, here we go. So we're going to start off a little bit just covering the landscape and why what we're talking about today we see as being so important. It's a very well-documented story that we're not going to dive too deep into about how the video landscape is changing. In fact, eMarketer just published, I believe, 48 hours ago that, by 2023, for the first time, less than half of America will be a cable subscribing household, right? Under 50% of the US will subscribe to traditional TV. We are rapidly reaching the point of parity between pay TV households and non-pay TV households. And that trend is even further accelerated when you look specifically at adults 25 to 54. By 2022, this year, more adults are projected to spend time consuming digital TV than live linear TV. So how big is the streaming opportunity today? 140 million US adults will be using ad-supported OTT this year. That's more people than are using Instagram. So the question is no longer, is the streaming landscape a place that might work for your brand, or should your brand try it? That question has truly shifted to, how is your brand going to make this channel work? Because your audience is there and being reached every day. That said, despite the size of that opportunity, streaming only makes up 28% of all time spent with TV. Linear TV, despite its declines, is still a massive industry-leading opportunity. In fact, it leads all media in terms of time spent, and that's largely true across demos. Even Gen Z demographics are on average spending over an hour a day with traditional TV. And on top of that, YouTube represents 40% of all ad-supported connected TV streaming. So what does that mean? It means that all three of these channels are vital opportunities, and I think brands have the opportunity to reach consumers on their own terms, on the consumer's terms, rather than making choices about specifically where the brand wants to play. What this also means is that there are actually fewer ad opportunities on the TV screen today than ever before, and those numbers are going to continue to decline, right? Despite all the growth of ad-supported OTT and the momentum we see behind the ad-supported OTT landscape with even Disney Plus and maybe Netflix entering the space, what's true is that TV is a higher ad load environment, and people are leaving that higher ad load environment and moving to both non-ad supported environments, and certainly spending a lot of time with them, and into lighter ad load environments like Peacock and HBO Max, which have much lighter ad loads than traditional TV. So brands really have to take a very specific and tailored approach, minimize waste in order to navigate this fragmented and increasingly competitive landscape.
For us, lighter ad loads actually represent a major opportunity, both for the buy side as well as the sell side. How do we maximize the impact of that ad? And that's where data-driven or data-informed or audience-based targeting across all endpoints from a cross-channel, cross-platform perspective really comes into play. There's no secret that OTT viewership is on the rise and ad spending follows eyeballs, and that will only continue to grow. But like Jesse, you say, there still are so many water cooler, watershed moments that are still happening in linear television, and a huge percentage of eyeballs that are there as well. So it's how do you make those two platforms work together and be able to view, aggregated reach and frequency across all those different endpoints. No easy task, but that's sort of the work that OpenAP is here to do and help the industry with. But even as these things move cross-platform, cross-channel, there are still so many challenges remain, as you can see in the polls and in the chats that you all agree with this, both from fragmentation as well as understanding audience targets, scaling, sizing, where's my audience? And that changes according to exactly, what the strategic audience target is that a brand wants to reach. That answer isn't the same depending on target or depending on channel where you're advertising. And so audiences that are used for linear are often very different from the audiences that advertisers are using for digital or for OTT viewership. And there needs to be some type of standardization that exists to be able to combine that audience and be used as a through line across different platforms and publishers and channels. And right now that's very fragmented and very siloed. And media budgets too are often not unified from an strategic, holistic audience approach. Media budgets are often very specific to a digital play, OTT play, a YouTube play, walled garden approach play. And in this sort of walled garden media selling environment, sellers also don't want to share data, and advertisers are forced to sort of use these campaign specific metrics instead of a more cross-platform or valuable measurement framework that can work across different publishers and platforms. Jesse, what do you see as a really main challenge in the streaming landscape?
Yeah, good question. Thanks. I think that there's so many different entry points now, and consumers are viewing in so many different ways, that really, it's really, like I said, important to reach the consumers on their own terms, right? And I think that's something that I'm thankful for, is that, with OpenAP as a great example, the sell side, just like the buy side, we have mutual interest in bringing these together in what we're calling the convergent video landscape. Increasingly, publishers are offering to sell buyers all of their premium inventory as part of one buy, right? That means reaching consumers who are watching, for example, NBC Universal content like Bravo, across Bravo streaming, Bravo linear, even YouTube, online video, all as one buy. And
Peacock.
the other thing here, yeah, go ahead.
And Peacock, right? And all
yeah.
viewership. I mean, you're going to see this play out in a big way, and this year's coming up front for sure.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, and I think that the crux of this conversation today, is that brands are as diverse as the consumers. There's all kinds of brands with all kinds of objectives, and this landscape is too big for a one-size-fits-all solution, right? Depending on the brand's goals and objectives, there are different ways of buying that are catered to each one of those goals. And so we're going to talk today about how to navigate this complexity, and find the right entry point to this convergent video landscape that's right, depending on what kind of brand you are and what kind of goals you have for your campaign. The 5 steps in and of themselves, they're not revolutionary, right? They seem very basic, but they are 100% critical to success when taken together, right? Everything from starting with what you want to accomplish, based off of what you want to accomplish, how you should buy, and finally what you're going to buy by the end of the process. So we're going to take this step by step here. We talk to and service all kinds of advertisers, right? Some of the advertisers that we talk to are direct to consumer, they're direct to consumer e-com, right? Instacart, for example, M1 Finance, they're playing in the video space because they want to connect with consumers who are going to download their apps, make purchases, subscribe, right? And so they want to measure the KPIs of their video campaigns are very lower funnel, right? They're looking for incremental traffic and downloads. We're measuring CPA and ROI. Work with other brands like Poppy and Revlon who have very specific retail objectives and partnerships, right? Whether it's Amazon or Walmart or Kroger, just to name a few, these brands are playing in the video space because they want to drive incremental sales through their key retail partnerships. And then there are brands like Wrangler, for example, who don't have necessarily that one key retail partnership that they're looking to drive on a campaign by campaign basis. They're looking to sell jeans everywhere that jeans are sold, right? And so, both Wrangler and Yahoo are entering the space because they truly want reach and frequency. They want to drive sales everywhere that they can be bought, and ultimately to drive brand lift, right? So that they win at the aisle when, on Yahoo's case, someone is considering where to read their news, or in Wrangler's case, when they're looking at all those jeans options, right? So very different goals. And so that's where we start with our clients also, right? Why do you want to run video? What does success look like? What are we trying to do? From there, we talk to brands about how are those goals going to be measured. Just looking at the brand bucket that we just talked about, right? Many times when we talk to advertisers who say, hey, we want this to be upper funnel, we want to drive brand. When we then ask them, well, what are we going to measure? What does success look like? They talk about attributable and measurable traffic to their websites. And while that might be part of the definition of what good branding looks like to them in terms of measurement, from an execution standpoint, that really looks like a performance objective, right? How are we going to buy so that we can measure traffic, right? Other options include brand lift, and there are questions there, right? Is it a publisher study, your own study? Is it, sometimes it's an effective reach mechanism. These are just a few of the options. It gets more complex from there. But based off of the decisions of what are we trying to drive, where are you sold, right? How do we want to reach consumers and what do we want them to do? How are we going to measure that? That's going to impact how we're going to buy, right? For performance advertisers, there are benefits to buying both programmatically and through, highly efficient media, right? It allows it to be addressable, targetable in many cases. In many more cases, it's highly measurable. Again, whether it's programmatic or efficiently bought. Allows us to have really tight frequency controls, sequential targeting, and especially in programmatic, there is a lower cost of entry. So that's beneficial in many cases to very performance advertisers. But if you are branding, you don't necessarily want to take advantage of the measurement capabilities that working through programmatic and a DSP provides. So you want to save on why do you want to pay those platform fees, right? On the other hand, you might want to really buy audience guarantees. You might want to negotiate pricing efficiencies. You might want out of the box high impact units or negotiate added value. And so again, what we want to measure is going to highly dictate how we recommend you execute.
Jesse, we got a question over in the chat wondering about OTT ads be running with a geofence.
Yeah.
You want to weigh in there?
Yes, absolutely. Very geo-targetable. And
I recommend an addressable strategy there.
Thanks for the tee up. That's right. Not only is it geo-targetable, it can be very addressable. And by addressable, we mean like literally selecting the households that we want to target using data. That data can be geo data, but it can literally be everything from expressions of your brand personas, your strategic audiences, to people who are in market for specific products, to people who have affinities for specific brands or activities or behaviors, people who shop or who are your competitors who have been exposed to their ads. Really, the message here is the limits are really only your imagination. There's a ton of customized work that can be done to reach the right audience.
And I would just recommend touch base with that market's probably cable company. They probably have a very strong local, footprint there, and they can get you into those addressable ads on a local basis. Mm-hmm.
That's correct. And finally, the last step of our process is deciding what to buy. This is a really critical step, again, because of the fragmentation and all the ways that people are viewing, but also all the ways that content is sold. So we do have a structure and kind of that guides our recommendations in terms of how we start, that prioritizes getting into the most households across the most possible apps in some cases. And in other cases, it's really partnering directly with premium publishers that are very right for your brand. So again, how we navigate this structure is driven by minimizing overlap, not just in terms of viewership, but in terms of how the inventory is sold based on budget, based off of objectives. But that rounds out the 5-step process. The end results of that process will help brands navigate the 3 bespoke offerings that we have that cater to different types of advertisers, right? So for advertisers that at the end of the day want a highly measurable outcome, whether it's a CPA and an ROI, and they know that they're looking to drive direct consumer performance, Or for even brand advertisers who define their brand KPIs as attributable site traffic, we have a bespoke offering for performance led by our BlissPoint Media technology that we'll talk a little bit more about, but it makes a very measurable outcomes and approach to the streaming space. Second, we have a bespoke retail offering that caters to brands who specifically are interested in, I'm going to have to download this now, who are interested in driving measurable sales at Amazon, Target, Kroger, and Walmart specifically. And then we have a bespoke brand offering for advertisers who are truly looking to drive reach and frequency against a strategic audience. Our performance approach serves to answer the question, after we expose audiences to both streaming and linear inventory, what do the other devices in that household do after that exposure, right? Do they visit my website? Do they make a purchase? What's the ROI of the program, right? And again, this is such a critical view because, of course, you're not clicking on ads on TV screens, right? You are going to see a TV ad and then you're going to go to that brand's website. You're going to Google it, right? Or you might remember the brand's ad next time you see it on Facebook, and it's going to resonate that much more, and you're going to click on it there. And we're providing full transparency into the performance of every dollar spent through our performance dashboards that our direct-to-consumer performance brands really enjoy taking advantage of. One slide on our retail offering. Brands can take advantage of 35% of the US top 100 retailer sales for targeting and measurement in the streaming space. That's literally using Amazon, Walmart, Kroger, or Target data, their first-party data, to identify shoppers based off of SKU and category level purchase history, and then measure the uplift of your campaign. And last, for our brand advertisers, our primary approach here is audience-centric in that we are now able to, thanks to our partnership with OpenAP, guarantee delivery across convergent video, streaming, and linear, not against the legacy Nielsen audience, but against your strategic audience, right? So for example, if you're Blistex, you can work with IRI, for example, to build an audience that buys your competitive brands down to the SKU level in many cases, and in many cases focusing on specific retailers as well, right? You can then build that audience, work through OpenAP to translate it to a definition that's accepted and recognized across both the streaming and linear space in a unified fashion across all networks that they work with, vast majority of major networks, and then pay only for impressions that reach those households that, again, align with that strategic audience. And the benefit of doing this is that historically, brands had to work off of a Nielsen currency, right? So even if you were trying to reach your strategic audience, you were probably buying a demo like adults 25 to 54. Of course, there was a lot of waste in doing that, right? Because only a portion of adults 25 to 54 were in your audience. Now, by buying that specific audience, we're seeing that we're reducing cost per on-target reach by up to 66%, right? So we're becoming 66 more efficient with linear and streaming buys by, again, replacing that currency and guaranteeing on your strategic audience instead of a legacy age and demo. And again, this is really recommended for brands who either want to drive reach and frequency goals, brand lift, or that don't prioritize as much solely a direct-to-consumer or e-com channel. And so now you're able to reach consumers and stay top of mind no matter where they choose to shop.
Yeah. I mean, make it sound so easy, but the reality is this was a really difficult process, even up until even 6 months ago. There's been so much innovation from, across the different television publishers to bring products that really do corroborate all of their different endpoints and viewership, from streaming platform and all of the explosive growth that's happening there to still, all of their linear channels, and being able to optimize again now according to a strategic audience target and pay only when impressions are delivered to that in target guarantee across all different screens. And the reality of this is everything from that perspective has to start with the audience in mind, an audience-centric approach, working very closely with your brands and your clients to really understand who is their most valuable target. Where are those eyeballs the most meaningful for you to be able to, receive those in-target guarantees, and to have that goal of decreasing your client's ultimate cost per on-target reach, and how do you unify a holistic sort of cross-publisher, cross-platform audience strategy? It all again starts beginning from the audience first approach. And so we're excited to talk to you today about the tools that are available in the space now, and we partnered closely with Tenuity to help bring in OpenAP to connect to their planning tools, to connect to their inventory recommendations, to connect to their audience strategy. And OpenAP's role in this is to manage that audience activation across screens. So we're not sitting in the middle of the media buying. We're not sitting in the middle of any of the attribution that Tenuity is running. We're not sitting in the middle of Jesse's rate negotiations. Our role is to provide a through line for an audience-based approach across all of those different television properties that you saw, from OTT, streaming platforms, over to linear television, to digital FEP, and even addressable, and distribute audiences so that clients can now receive the same underlying audience target for their planning, execution, and measurement across publishers and across channels. And these challenges that we spent a lot of time at the beginning of the session sort of discussing, don't need to be barriers any longer to entering the OTTs or advertising landscape. We're going to talk through a case study that we've developed on how we help solve for this and help solve for some of these challenges, and hopefully be able to leave here feeling a little bit more confident in how this sort of all comes together across this entirely fragmented landscape. So the goal here is to follow consumer behavior, right? Again, as we mentioned, from an audience perspective, this looks differently, and this mix is always different according to ultimately who your client's most valuable audience target is. But being able to duplicate cross-platform viewership from linear to streaming to FEP is not the easiest task. And we need to be able to help clients unify that audience target, being able to distribute to multiple devices and screens, multiple different publishers, and have a common audience target that an identifier that can help solve for all of this different dispersion of audiences. And campaigns now that are built on this sort of underlying similar, same unified audience target can now be seamlessly shared to any of different OTT endpoints or any different linear television environments, to be able to look across the full spectrum of viewership and be able to now resolve and understand how your audience is viewing and consuming television, whether it's in a linear, day part and ad airing, whether it's in a digital FEP one-to-one impression served, or whether it's within an OTT streaming environment. And this work has been done across all the television publishers to unify their back-end planning tools so that you can now see across all of their different endpoints, again, all based on your underlying audience target, and no longer have to look at each of these publishers in a siloed fashion. And that work is called the OpenID. This was just debuted last year. It's very new to the industry. It's been adopted in a major way across all 11 US premium television publishers. It's now a reality to receive an audience targeted guarantee across every single one of these television publishers, across all of their inventory endpoints, from Jesse mentioned, from the big eyeballs still happening, who watched The Bachelor Monday night, right, or Sunday night, to a cable optimization with across your Real Housewives schedule, to a Peacock, Paramount Plus, Discovery Plus type of buy, to an addressable footprint, to even, you know, the FEP specific buys, because every single one of these television publishers has adopted a common framework to use the same audience target for planning, execution, and measurement, agreeing to accept open IDs for both linear, digital streaming, planning, activation, and measurement. A huge industry achievement and a collective effort across all the different television partners.
Yeah, and I hope I don't steal your thunder here, but I think that like one of the big like changes that represents is that, you know, there's been audience-based buying in this space for some time, right? But you know, the difference is that, you know, if I took my audience to A&E, they'd define it before this, right? They'd define it in their own way. If I took it to Discovery, they'd define it in their own way. In fact, they'd probably define it differently in the linear space as they would in the digital space, right?
Absolutely.
Now, all these logos and all the dozens of networks that they represent are enabling you to define one audience in a synergistic way across all these logos and across screens. And then measure the reach and frequency against it.
Saving you a lot of time in the process, saving you also a lot of costs that typically were involved, helping to streamline that communication. The first, you know, step here is developing and identifying your audience target in a centralized way, right? Through OpenAP, making sure it's the perfect sizing for the television publisher to accept, perfect sizing for the scale you want to achieve, whether that's all the way across OTT to cable to broadcast television, or if it's a, you know, different mix of that, and being able to do that once with one team of experts that helps work with you. We onboard data that you know is working very well in your programmatic strategy or in your addressable strategy, but you want to look at now having an audience guarantee across all different television endpoints or across linear television, being able to look at, you know, third-party segments that really help identify and describe your client's most valuable, you know, target audience. So whatever that mixes, you know, our team works to create that perfect audience target that's going to be used for execution across all of the different television endpoints. But then from the sell side, it helps them as well, because, you know, they're able to go in and all have this underlying standardization of the audience target they're building on, and be able to leverage tools that we've built centrally to be able to move data faster at a higher efficacy with a faster turnaround time, because now these tools and connective tissue has been built that previously, to your point, didn't exist. And so, you know, now you're using that same audience target, whether it was, you know, your example of IRI, it's a 17 million, you know, set of IDs. It reaches 14% of US households. Go now use that into your RFP work and planning, giving you more time to ultimately negotiate with the networks directly, get that inventory fine-tuned, spending less time on that back and forth of creating your audience target. You've defined it once, and now it gets distributed for you to be able to, you know, maximize your time in terms of reviewing proposals and planning insights. And this central audience basically takes you through the next stages, right? Distributed, you get planning insights back. Jesse, we're going to take the crew through, you know, a look at the work we did in the case study here. But you also get now post-campaign insights, which deduplicates all of the reach and frequency, not only from a linear perspective, but also from a cross-platform perspective, showing exactly how many IDs were reached, how many IDs were exposed during your campaign, across what devices, across what publishers, and at what frequency. Really exciting work, and a lot of this brand new to the industry, guys. And we're going to see this play out in a big way again in this year's upfront, with having all of the networks groups now really have a unified, convergent strategy, as Jesse mentioned up front, that unites, you know, one singular audience guarantee that has a thread across, you know, a whole linear footprint, all the way to an OTT footprint, all the way to an addressable footprint, all the way to a digital FEP footprint. And in this convergent or fluid type of guarantee enables the publishers to maximize the impact of their inventory as well, ensuring only those in-target guarantees, or you're only paying on those in-target guarantees. And so it helps sort of the industry overall, both from a buy side to a sell side, by having, this unified audience strategy from the beginning. We want to take a second to maybe answer a few of these questions.
Yeah, a few really good questions that we should get to all of them. Minnie asked a question about how are you guaranteeing strategic audience reach in linear? And I just want to make the point that it's not correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's not OpenAP who's making the guarantee.
Yep.
It's OpenAP who's managing the identity and enabling the networks to negotiate on an audience guarantee in a very similar fashion to how they did, on legacy, agent demo. But now replacing agent demo, those networks are entering into guarantees at a strategic audience level. And maybe, Abby, you could speak a little bit to the mechanism for how they're able to
geek out on the mechanism of it. So there's sort of, when we get an audience target and we've onboarded it now as a set of IDs, to an identity spine, essentially that then gets mapped to a panel or a data set, depending on what currency the linear plan is being guaranteed on. So in Nielsen, that set of IDs would actually be sent over to Nielsen to match it to the Nielsen's, person panel. So people panel. So Nielsen creates then a PID list, it's called, which essentially assigns each one of those IDs to a Nielsen home. And then that is what the networks are able to use into their optimizers to inform day parts, and networks and selling title level recommendations in which they're going to guarantee on that specific in-target audience. That also can be done for ComScore. So it would leverage the ComScore deterministic, 30 million set-top box households, and we would create basically a ComScore tag that's then shared to the publishers to be able to inform their optimizers' recommendations. And as you see all the things play out in the trades from alternate currency perspectives, being able to do this across VideoAmp or Comcast or whatnot is our objective, to be able to provide that type of whatever the publishers need to inform their optimizers to give you those in-target audience guarantees. And scale matters here too. You have to make sure it's the right size that works across a national footprint.
Yep. So many, like Abby just talked about how the audiences are used for planning and optimizing the plan going in, but then from a measurement perspective, those same IDs are being used to then post against, so that we know how that audience maps to the panel and the percent of the panel that was reached, and it's and that's how the measurement happens.
Yep. Francisco, I'm going to answer your question as a part of what's coming up here, and then just to touch on quickly, Zach, your question about the data cleanroom services. So I can't give too much away, but let me tell you that data cleanrooms are of top priority for our team. We have many conversations going on right now about our clean room strategy and how that gets built out and what that looks like. And you're going to see a lot more of that play out in the industry. So without giving too much away, I would say, yes, we will be offering clean room services. We will be partnering with major clean rooms, and this will be a big part of sort of our ongoing 2022 strategy. So look for more announcements on that front soon. All right, so measurement, right? So all this work goes into your audience activation approach. You go through the planning, you go through, right? You go to order across, whichever different publishers, different footprints. The buyer's always in charge of ultimately where the order gets placed. And what is the result and outcome of that hard work? Well, I'm here to tell you that there is now a collective framework that every single one of those 11 US television publishers has agreed to. This also sits across 5 measurement providers, as well as a digital measurement expert with Innovid providing OTT level insights in addition to all of these different measurement providers. And also, this has been approved and vetted and underscored by both the VAB as well as the ANA as the television's collective framework to resolve identity on a cross-platform basis across publishers. So this means you run across, Disney and Bravo and Fox and Peacock and Discovery Plus, and you buy Turner FVP, and you're buying FVPD inventory from Addressable, and all of that now, no matter how you bought it, whether it's a direct IO, it was a peel off from the linear, it was a convergent deal, it was a programmatic deal, all of that now gets resolved back into XPM reporting. It's powered by wherever that OpenAD was enabled, wherever we shared that audience target to, wherever you had an in-target audience guarantee, now gets resolved to be able to share with you exactly what your in-target audience was reached across a household level, or we can also do it through a Nielsen report at a person level of exactly what incrementality was driven through your OTT buys in addition to any linear viewership, and sharing with you exactly how many people or how many households were able potentially to be reached in this, like fully understanding through a huge landscape now and huge set of eyeballs and reach, ultimately where that target audience was, how you were able to reach them through the media that you placed, the total number of impressions and the average frequency, looking at exactly of your in-target audience and where your ad was exposed. How many of those people were only on linear? And how many of those people were only on OTT? And we're seeing more and more that, these worlds are sort of pulling apart and little duplication happening between them. It's the exact reason why, right, we all do our jobs to make sure that our clients are reaching their audiences across many different channels and many different screens. So we can now prove out across the television industry exactly how those properties all worked in conjunction to ultimately deliver an audience in only linear environments as well as only OTT environments. And also, this is so exciting. We're at the forefront of this. This is just the beginning of, of what cross-platform framework can deliver to our industry. But a quick look at what this could mean is audience profiling, taking out that exposed list of IDs and being able to understand, right? Let's say, we're going to go through the case study, but let's say that, you're only looking at a type of psychographic or a type of, persona, right? You have no cares in the world about what actual that demo target is, or age and gender or household income, right? We can actually report back based on that psychographic, based on a, time sensitive busy family, or based on whatever it is, cool hip Whole Foods mama, like whatever it is, we can actually assign now attributes according to how those IDs were exposed, right? That are coming basically from all of that audience work in the beginning. And then being able to even take that exposed list of IDs and help using it to inform down the funnel, further downstream marketing strategies. So what networks and day parts had your audience been watching, but you weren't exposed there, right? Was that a part of the media mix? Or could you maybe, make tweaks in a future linear campaign to buy more of those day parts? Or could you take that over frequency, highest frequency set of IDs and use it to suppress in your digital channels, or take the unexposed list and use it to retarget, right? To answer Francisco's question, to retarget those IDs through your programmatic channels. So this is very exciting. We're just at the beginning of this. Like I said, this is just, starting now, but we're very excited to see how many different use cases can come out of this. And I think we're going to go through a case study.
Let's do it. We'll do it quickly. And this is available for download also, so you can read it in more detail. But essentially, we worked with there's a brand that wanted to brand. They wanted to reach a younger audience. They wanted to replace the linear TV that they had historically run in Q4, and they wanted to understand the downstream results that were driven immediately from this branding that affected their holiday season. So what we did was we work with this brand. We know their audience. We were able to translate it specifically for the TV screen. We built this persona based off of shopper data, right? What brands the audience shops, what retailers they shop from, as well as using ACR data, what kind of content they watch on TV, so that it was outdoor active oriented content. we built that into an audience. We sized it. We knew how large it was, and then we worked with Fox and Discovery to guarantee against that audience. We found that in 2019, this brand's only 17% of their adult 25 to 54 buy reached this strategic audience, and by activating against this strategic audience, we reduced their cost per on-target reach by 66% across both linear and streaming. I gave away the outcome. We executed this across linear, across YouTube, and across OTT. We were able to measure the cross-platform, cross-publisher reach, working with OpenAP and the OpenID. We increased on-target reach by 37%, while decreasing spend by 76% versus their previous linear linear activation. So again, I think this is just shows the promise of, while the linear landscape may be shrinking, there's still a massive viewership opportunity there. But there's also the opportunity to now play in this convergent landscape. And by guaranteeing a strategic audience across that convergence, we are able to increase reach with less spend and truly minimize the waste that was endemic to the medium before.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it, folks. Leading into the key takeaways, and we'll take any other additional questions. I wanted to highlight that what we talked about today was the focal point of our brand offering at Tenuity. This is one of the 3 bespoke products that we offer clients. We highlighted our 5-step process that navigates clients through our products and all the options therein across performance, retail, and brand. Because this space is just too fragmented to accommodate one-size-fits-all solutions. The audience is there and valuable across streaming, linear, and YouTube, and guaranteeing delivery against a unified strategic audience that's accepted across streaming and linear and across networks is increasing on-target efficiency by as much as 66%.
Mm-hmm. And a common identifier or a common audience target, however you want to describe it, helps advertisers build proposals, plans that are all standardized and allow you to access all those different publishers, different viewerships across whatever endpoint and whatever platform you prefer. And when campaigns get built on that central audience target and that central underlying ID, which now exists, digitizing the television industry, as I like to describe it, brands and marketers will get unified measurement that deduplicates your cross-platform and cross-channel and resolves it all based on that underlying audience target to understand exactly who was reached and where and across what screen. I'm going to go ahead and answer Minnie's question quick, just as we have a little bit of time. Just on the XPM front, are we using any ACR data to identify linear exposure, or is it all through Comscore Nielsen? Great question. Comscore Nielsen both are verified providers of the cross-platform measurement framework, but we also have providers that do leverage ACR data. So one of them being iSpot, and VideoAmp has a commingled data set in which they're using both ACR data as well as set-top box level data to be able to resolve and to duplicate viewership. So it really comes down to the buyer and who their preference and preferred methodology is. We're agnostic in that approach. We wanted to make multiple measurement providers available for the exact that reason, that everybody sort of has their own choice, their own preferred methodology, their own source of truth. And so we're happy to work with whichever one you prefer, if that's iSpot or if that's, the Comscore or Nielsen or whatever else comes next.
And I have a shameless plug on that also, that, Minnie, you're not on your own to navigate all that. We actually just published a blog post last week or the week before that summarizes the key differentiators between the emerging currencies. Everything from Oracle and Samba to iSpot to 605. So that's part of what we would identify, again, through our 5-step planning process about how we're going to measure what we do.
Awesome. And I will try to grab a link for that blog post and put it in the chat for our audience as well. And before we wrap, Abby, I know that you all wanted to give an offer for our audience. Oh, you're muted. There we go.
An offer for audience? Wait, remind me.
Just if they wanted to connect after the session today.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So I'm Abby, ABBEY at openap.tv. For any of you looking to, head into next year's upfront, looking to head into next year's upfront, well prepared and armed with an audience strategy, I would encourage you to reach out, connect with us, whether you're already working with the publishers but are looking to now explore an audience buy, or whether you're doing this for the first time ever, but you see an opportunity here to do an audience-based buy across different television publishers. Let us help. We're here to support. So reach out to me at Abby, ABBEY at openap.tv.
Well, thank you so much. We love partnering with OpenAP, and for our audience, I know that we shared lots of great insights about all things in the streaming landscape. If you are interested in talking with our teams at OpenAP or Tenuity, the poll is currently live for you to let us know, and we'd be happy to follow up after the session today. And obviously, you can also drop Abby a line separately as well. So yeah, we'd love to be able to continue the conversation. That poll is currently open, and if you have answered it, I am also going to direct you that once you answer the poll, you can scan the QR codes here. I know we are running out of time, but also answered a lot of your all's questions during the session today, and so if you have follow-up questions, you can scan the QR codes to connect with Jesse and Abby on LinkedIn.
Yes, I also offer to connect.
You can tell who's a salesperson. Well, to each of you guys too. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Cheers.
Awesome. Well, we hope everyone has a great St. Patrick's Day. We know Abby is in the spirit, and thank you so much for our audience for being so engaged and asking so many great questions too. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day. And again, happy St. Patrick's Day. So thanks all.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.